Hey guys, Brian from Brewing. Today we're doing a review of the Tilt Hydrometer. There's two key questions we want to answer. Number one, is it worth the price of entry? Number two, does it really add value to your brew day and your fermentation? A lot of the stuff that comes out now from a brewing technology standpoint tends to complicate things rather than make them better. So let's get to it and find out. Okay guys, quick disclaimer. Tilt did not send us this hydrometer for review. We spent our own money, so our opinions are our own. Before we get into our review of the Tilt hydrometer, let's talk about specific gravity for a minute, because that's what the Tilt hydrometer measures. Now, typically with most brewers, they use something like this, and it has sufficed for a very, very long time. Now, why do we care about specific gravity? Well, specific gravity is the measurement of the dissolved sugars inside of your wort. Why do we care about that? Well, that helps you calculate how much alcohol comes out of the finished beer and when the fermentation is finished. Two very, very important metrics when it comes to brewing. All right, so let's take a look at the Tilt hydrometer. So it comes in a pretty simple box, instructions. It does list the colors that it comes in on the back. It's important when you're ordering one to make sure that if you're doing more than one, you get different colors, because the app will not track more than one color at a time. So if you have two of the same thing, like two reds, it'll only track one of the reds. So make sure you get different colors if you're doing more than one. Let's go ahead and unbox it. Let's take a look. So we've got our Tilt hydrometer inside. Once again, we've got those instructions. Just toss those. And inside is the Tilt hydrometer. I really like the simple packaging that they put on that. Go ahead and slide that guy out. Now, this is not the first generation Tilt. This might be the second, possibly even third. They've made some improvements on the Bluetooth range, so it is much improved compared to some of the earlier models. We did still see some range limitations, especially once we put it in the fridge, which has a metal door, the fermentation fridge, and we got about 8 feet of range, which isn't really a problem unless you're really trying to track from a long distance. Bluetooth, of course, has its own range limitations, so they did actually pretty good with what it is, and especially to improve the battery life with the low power Bluetooth. Battery life on this is 12 to 24 months, depending upon how much you're brewing, and it's accurate to 0.002 degrees Play-Doh, so it's actually pretty accurate. Now, it measures that based upon how it's actually tilted within your wort. So when you first drop it in and the gravity is pretty high, it will tilt at an angle. As it ferments and the sugar content drops, it will slowly straighten up. So basically it measures the angle with an accelerometer. On the front of your board, I don't know if you saw it a few seconds ago, there's a green flashing light. That tells you, one, that it's turned on, and two, how much battery is left. Because there's no on and off button, if you just leave it in the drawer and it's flat and it's not moving, it will go to sleep and shut off on its own. When you do tilt it and put it in, it will turn on and flash green to let you know it's active and that the battery is still good, and you can kind of go with it from there. It does measure temperature as well as specific gravity, and it is good from well, it's plus or minus 1 degree Fahrenheit. As far as the gravity range goes, it's good from 0.99 to about 1120. So kind of covers your full range of some big beers that you could possibly do, all the way down to below zero from a gravity standpoint. So it really is good about measuring that. Now, as far as the tracking goes, we tracked through the Bluetooth, through the app that you can download and put on your mobile device. It did a pretty good job of tracking it, uploading it to Google Sheets. They have a great template that you can use. We kind of had an issue with it as far as we had to keep the device close. It had to stay plugged in, otherwise it would die. And so you're kind of limited from that standpoint. It does have a lot of third-party integrations, including Raspberry Pis and other cloud integrations as well. So you could try out one of those and see if that works better. Honestly, we just use the native app and the tracking from that standpoint. Overall, pretty impressed with what comes in such a small package. All right, guys, let's talk about the Tilt hydrometer for a second and some of the challenges that I came across when I was using it. So first and foremost, it does communicate via Bluetooth, which when I was testing it and had it out of my climate-controlled fermentation chamber, had like a 20-foot range. It was fantastic. I could roam all over the place and get a reading instantaneously from it. As soon as I put it in the fridge and shut the door, that range dropped to maybe 8 feet. So Bluetooth does have some issues penetrating into thick walls and objects and metal objects as well. well. So with that Bluetooth tracking, like I mentioned, you need a dedicated device that's hooked up via Bluetooth to be tracking and storing those readings every couple of seconds. And you can upload that to Google Sheets, which is very cool, as long as you have a dedicated device for that. If you don't, you either have to keep your phone there or figure out something else that has Bluetooth to be able to store that data. The other challenge that you really look at is it's about $135 at the time of this filming for a hydrometer, that you can get a lab grade hydrometer and a graduated cylinder for, you're looking at 20 bucks. And this does a perfectly good job of measuring your gravity in your wort. So let's talk about some of the pros then, some of the things that I did like. Number one, I don't have to waste an entire sample out of a hydrometer or a graduated cylinder when I'm taking a reading. You take this, you drop it in the fermenter. Every time I walked by, I could take a reading and check it. I didn't have to get anything out and sanitize it and pour the sample and spin it and wait and make sure it's at the right temperature. This tracks the temperature and the specific gravity of the wort as it's fermenting in real time. So that was very cool. So my thoughts on the Tilt hydrometer. $135 is kind of expensive for such a small gadget, especially when you can accomplish, for the most part, the same thing with a graduated cylinder and a hydrometer. But the convenience that this thing provides is actually pretty cool. For me to be able to walk by my fridge, take my phone out and go like, well, what is it? 2 seconds later, okay, it's not quite done yet. Versus getting out the graduated cylinder, sanitizing everything, pouring a sample, then having to taste it and dump it, and then wasting a lot of the beer. So being able to check this multiple times has been super handy. I wish that the charting functionality worked a little bit better as far as not having to have a device so close and constantly synced up. I think that would have been a kind of a neat thing to do, but just on its own, the convenience factor is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for watching this far into the video. As promised, here is your bonus tip for the Tilt hydrometer. Now, when we were looking online and other people's reviews and seeing out what their experience was with the hydrometer, we noticed a lot of people having issues putting this either in a carboy or getting it to function properly. So here's your little bonus tip. When you're unboxing it and taking it out of the wrapper, make sure that you take it completely out of the packaging. Tilt's packaging is so kind of cool and neat with the logo and the brand that you don't realize that there's one more clear plastic container outside of a Tilt hydrometer. So if your Tilt is not fitting in your carboy, it's because you haven't taken off all the wrapping. If you drop it into your bucket and it's just floating completely on its side, you didn't take it out of all the packaging. So there's your bonus tip.